just got here, so we will record this presentation this time and get it right. So what's the skeletal system? Bones, cartilages, joints, ligaments, tendons. Tendons hold the muscles to bone. So all of these tissues are accumulation of particular cells or the skeletal system. What does the skeletal system do? It supports against gravity, stores calcium and phosphorus, produces red blood cells and white blood cells, protects the soft internal organs and allows movement. The specialized cells of the bone are 2% of bone weight. So bones are collagen fibers that have been hardened by deposits of calcium phosphate. Those are the types of bones: long, short, flat, irregular. Make sure you know examples of each. Humerus is a long bone, parietal bone of the skull is a flat bone, irregular bone is a vertebrum. Short bones in the wrist, for instance, are short bones. So that lists all the parts of the bone. Let's look at a picture of a long bone. So each end is called an epiphysis. The central shaft is the diaphysis. Spongy bone forms the epiphysis. The epiphyseal line is a growth plate. There's cartilage on the ends of the bone, articular cartilage. The cavity in the center of the bone is where red blood cells are made, and white blood cells, and so on. The endosteum lines the bone cavity. The periosteum lines the entire bone. So cartilage at either end where joints are formed. So let's look at the microscopic features of bone. So the periosteum goes around the outside of the bone, and then we'll get here. So compact bone, long bones have these long columns of osteons, and the central canal has nerves and blood. We'll see little structures that allow all of the bone cells in these osteons to be nourished and have waste removed. So there's the marrow cavity, compact bone on the outside. Again, the central canal has blood vessels. The layers of bone that form the osteon are called lamellae. The parts of the network of spongy bone, the little structures are called trabeculae. Endosteum lines the cavity, bone cavity, marrow cavity. Makes you know what a perforating canal is, central canal, and so on. So if you look at a microscopic slide where a very thin layer of bones is polished to a very thin layer, you can see an osteon. So here's an osteon. Here's an osteon. Those are formed by the osteoblasts and are maintained by the osteocytes. So all these small lines are called canaliculi. That allows oxygen and nutrients to diffuse to all of the bone cells. Any waste, CO2 or metabolic waste, move through these small canals and making bone a living, functioning system that is constantly reabsorbed and rebuilt depending upon weight, hormonal level, growth rate, and so on. So we mentioned trabeculae. Those are the structures of spongy bone. Spongy bone doesn't have any osteons. An osteon, remember, is a concentric layers of compact bone, uh, which forms around a central canal. Those are the long columns that make up the long bones. What are the types of bone cells? Mature bone cells are called osteocytes. Osteoclasts uh, allow bone to be broken down, osteolysis, and osteoblasts build new bone. They secrete collagen and calcium salts. There are two types of bone formation called ossification. Intramembranous ossification forms the flat bones of the skull, mandible, clavicle. Uh, Osteoblasts build bone, and then some of those mature into osteocytes. So that's one type of bone formation or ossification. Most of the rest of the skeleton, the long bones, are formed from the cartilage skeleton of the fetus. So the cartilage skeleton is the template, and the osteoblast and the osteocytes and the uh, osteoclasts break down bone, build bone, and the mature osteocytes maintain the bone structure. The more that they are, when the osteocytes are built or grow, and once the bone is built, it will be maintained by osteocytes, and those are the little cells that are within the uh, central canal and the osteon. Another name for this system, very organized system of bone bone formation, or so endochondral ossification. And this is the picture. Know that the bone starts off as cartilage, and osteocyte, osteoblast, and osteoclast efforts form the cavity, allow blood vessels to move into the cavity. And so you have a very active tissue with blood vessels and very active growing cells. We can go step by step. So just know that the pattern is from cartilage bone, where the cavity is hollowed out by osteoclasts. Blood vessels grow into the marrow cavity and into the ends of the bones. You have primary ossification and secondary ossification. So this is the endochondral ossification. Most of the bones of the body, most long bones, are formed by this function of the osteocytes, osteoblasts, osteoclasts. These nerves has to be modified, and the cartilage starts, and then we go all the way to the mature bone with primary ossification along the diaphysis and secondary ossification in the ends of the bones at the epiphyses. How does bone grow? To make the bone thicker and to form a larger bone as people grow. You have appositional growth. So some bones are going to be, tissue is going to be reabsorbed, and other tissue will be put down by osteoblasts. So bones are constantly being remodeled. Bones are always growing. And depending on whether you're a flat bone or a cartilage bone, then you're going to be formed by osteocytes, osteoblasts, osteoclasts in the long bones, and then a flat process in the flat bones builds flat bone. Okay, let's stop there this time, see if I can remember. So now we'll stop recording. Stop.